Welcome to the Analyze Sports Talk, a sports podcast of real conversations of the latest sports topics from baseball to basketball, from football to hockey and everything in between, like trade gossip, waiver wire, locker room talk, and more. Now, here is Analyze Sports.
What's up, everybody? It's Sunday evening, November 19th, 2017.
Yep.
Analyze Sports broadcast, Charron Elliott.
Chapman.
Robert Jordan.
All right, and today we're going to open up with talking about the big game this weekend.
What big game?
Coming up.
Is it a big game this weekend?
You know how they are about that in Kentucky.
I thought Louisville fans checked out. I thought they already checked out. Is it still football season or is it basketball season?
Rivalry week.
I mean, because I'm hearing a lot of basketball talk right now. And I don't hear a lot of Louisville fans talking about football.
Well, to respond to that, Andre, for a lot of Louisville fans, this season has kind of been somewhat of a disappointment. High expectations. Some people had super high expectations. For me personally, I
heard a lot 10-1.
Yeah.
I think I said 9-3, 10-2, something like that. I was one of those fans. I jumped out the window.
So in Louisville's defense, a lot of key guys were hurt this season.
Major key.
But in the games against Boston College, inferior competition, there was really no excuse for them to get torn apart the way they did at home.
I don't know, man. I mean, granted, it is Boston College, but season hasn't been that much of a downfall. A lot of times we, as Louisville fans, like I said earlier, jump out the window. And expectations were high this year, but I want to say last game versus
Syracuse. They played Syracuse
yesterday. Team looked like a better version of what we expected versus the defense and offense balancing out and being able to compete on each side of the ball. Go back to your point, the Boston College game. We were missing Jair Alexander and Stacey Thomas, our linebacker, which two major keys in the defense components. I think going forward, we're going to be all right going into this game. Kentucky seems like a very good run team from what I've seen. Things just going to come down to turnovers and who can sustain momentum whenever the big plays are made.
Yeah, I think for me it's all about Lamar getting the help he needs, and like he did yesterday. Lamar is going to do his thing, but I need to see those running backs, Malik Williams and Dave Williams, get their touches on the field, and then the defense. Are they going to bring it like they did yesterday? That's going to be Those are going to be the two major keys in that game. And then it's going to be a rivalry game. I think it'll come down to maybe one or two plays like it has in the last couple of years. And I know Lamar will be locked in, especially with all those fumbles he had last season. Even with him getting the Heisman, it seems like he's gotten better this season. And the fact that he hasn't even, to a lot of people, he's not even in that conversation is really discouraging.
Because he's not winning.
It's just, that's what it is. His stats are way better than last year. It just, like he said, wins and losses determine that, winning that category. He's not going to win that with the record we got right now.
Well, I mean, football is such a true, team-oriented sport. If you got 11 guys, they all have to communicate well. They all have to do their job. If they don't, you're not going to win those big-time games. You're not going to beat a Clemson. You're not going to beat an NC State and those teams that you needed to beat this year in order to have that signature moment. I mean, now, granted, in the Clemson game, Louisville they just got outmatched. They were beaten down. And a lot of those plays came down to them miscommunicating and flags and big penalties and stuff like that. But you still have got to correct that as a team. That's a unit. That's not really a Lamar thing. It's more or less like you all been saying, it's a team thing. But I still think
that, like the offensive line and all that, has been a problem even when Lamar had the Heisman, got the Heisman, won the Heisman. So, still that same issue of protecting Lamar. That's still been an issue. I haven't seen Louisville protect him yet. And that's why he's able to key off a lot of these explosive plays and stuff like that because of who he is as an athlete. But as far as the game goes, I mean, just like any other rivalry game it's been in football, I felt like Kentucky this season, they've really underachieved with the schedule that they had in the SEC East. Could really, you anticipate that they lose to a Georgia, but they really they should have won that Ole Miss game and the Florida game. So really, they could be looking at 9 wins right now, going into 10 wins going against Louisville.
Lose to Tennessee too, didn't you? Y'all played Tennessee?
Yeah, they beat Tennessee. They beat Tennessee, but they lost to Ole Miss and Florida.
Florida, that's the game I'm thinking about. The miscommunication touchdown. That was the one I'm thinking about.
I thought that was going to be the year you all beat.
Right, to Florida. End the streak. But so I think Louisville has a chance in this game because, of how they played down the stretch with those two teams, Florida and Ole Miss, and because it's a rivalry game, I believe Louisville can come in and win the game. So it should be something that, like you said, comes down to 1 or 2 plays.
And then I want to go back to what Robert said earlier. A lot of people are checking out and getting ready for basketball season.
And I didn't used to hear that a lot.
Yeah, that's
like
really
you used
shocking.
to say Kentucky fans are checked out, but now it's on the reverse.
I think it's just our freckled fan base. Like, we up when we up, we down when we down, and then when everything hits the wall, it's everybody needs to be fired. It's just the overreaction society we live in today. People expect results in 2 to 3 year turnaround, and granted, I mean, even the expectation that Charlie had when he had her, it was from 1 year of being okay, and we won the bowl that we were in. I forgot which one it was, but that next year coming in, expectations wasn't so high, but then he, like I said, bumped the notch up. We beat that Florida team, I think his junior year, Teddy's sophomore year or junior? Sophomore year. Sophomore year, we beat Florida. So now with Bobby, I just think, to go back on last podcast was, I think he's been dealt not a bad hand because not that. That's what I said. No, not to give him any excuses or sound like a Bobby apologist. No, not at all. Not at all. There's plenty of adjustments he could have made in certain games, but to go back to certain games where I think it's either 1-7 or 1-8 record that everybody talks about in those big games, but I went back to 2014 when he first came here. We lost to Clemson. I don't remember when they were ranked, but we lost to them off a 1 possession game where we had the ball on 4th and goal and a mismanagement of clock with Will Gardner and Bobby. That could have been a turnaround of a game, or the game where Quick burns out and catches a deep ball and gets caught at the goal line and we don't score that year.
And he's supposed to have been one of the fastest athletes in the state.
Him and Devontae Parker had 2 plays like that. Devontae Parker's was against Florida State that year, and we didn't score in the goal line.
In Devontae's defense, I think he was actually hurt.
Yeah, he came back. No, that's what I'm not making no excuses, but I'm just saying we don't remember back as a fan base to 1 or 2 plays that could have changed our whole dynamic or the season, or to go back to last year's game when Clemson. Quick goes into the goal line, we don't have this discussion about him even getting fired or even thinking about it because we beat a top-ranked team. And to what I was saying, to go back to my point of Bobby's defense is like a lot of those times where we went against Clemson or Florida State, we're going against teams that have 8 or 9 guys that are going pro. In Louisville, we have maybe the last 2 or 3 years we've had like a bunch from Charlie's old regime, but the last like 2 or 3 years we've had like 2 maybe.
So
we had Rankins and we had Parker. Before then, I can't think of no top recruit we had. I mean, no top player we've had.
I mean, y'all was putting them in the league.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think Steve, if Steve was here, he would say Strong was a better recruiter, hands down.
Yeah, and I wouldn't argue with that, and that's my point of saying, like, my point of bringing up that and us getting beat on the recruiting trail is just being like, a lot of this is him scheming wins versus us being able to go out there and beat, how you said, inferior talent or teams that we're supposed to win, because he wins all the games that we're supposed to win. Besides these last 2 years, we hadn't dropped the game to Virginia not Virginia, to a bad team, which you said Boston College or something like that. But I just wanted to remind the fan base, like, I mean, now this coming up year, I'll say this will be his judgment year because this will be his senior class. This is the last year of Charlie's recruits.
Yeah.
So.
But hold on, man. Come on, dude. Y'all done hired this man a second time. Right. He's already proven, right?
But that's my point of saying, like, people who jump out the window and say he needs to be fired, I go to my point of saying, who are we going to replace him with? Like, I was hearing Chip Kelly and Les Miles. Those guys wouldn't take 2 seconds to look at us. Like,
what makes you so sure they would?
Because we're not a top we're not a top college program. When I mean that, I mean overall. Like, you got to think, he's used to going to a stadium with 100,000 people. Papa John Stadium only holds
50 some days.
30, 30. It's like 30, 40 right now, and we're trying to get 50 to 60,000.
No, it's 50. It's already 50.
Yeah,
They're trying to get to about
60
something.
Expand it
to about 70,000, I think. Yeah.
So with that being said, it's like we're already in a bad recruiting spot too, because we're not in a prime position of these top locations as far as Texas and
that's what I was saying. I can't really go from there.
I mean, y'all can say it, but it's the facts is the facts. Y'all can say
they're not Alabama or Ohio State. Or,
with that being said,
they're not. Louisville's not that, but Louisville is it's a top football program in the country.
It's a top 30. But my point of saying that is, we're still not one of those.
It's not.
Yeah, and that's my point of saying. So expectations to be a power program needs to be lower, because until we get one of those genius offensive coordinators to come in here, or we do get
Bobby Petrino.
Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be.
I'm saying that, but I'm not making no assumption saying he's that offensive genius anymore. He's
like, come on, man. This is just Louisville's fan base. Before Rick Pitino won the championship in 2013.
Yeah.
Louisville fans were calling for his head.
I wasn't.
I've heard it. People in here, I'm just saying, as far as in general, Louisville fans, period.
I've heard those calls.
This man's head.
I've heard those calls.
Fans
I remember Shane Bohannon, telling people what's going on with y'all wasn't on board then and stuff like that when Louisville started turning around the season. I think the season before.
Because if you saw what they did in 2012 and I thought they didn't really have that much talent on that team going into basketball. I'm flipping the switch to basketball.
Yeah, and it was mainly that year.
And he still took them to the Final Four. Well, that team to me didn't have that much talent. But the 13 team,
they had Wayne, they had Gordy. What you mean they didn't have that
Wayne
much talent?
was hurt that 2012 year.
Wayne played that year.
Not the 2012.
He played hurt.
He played hurt.
Though.
He played in the Final
that,
Four.
it's just like.
But I'm saying that season, that team started slow.
Yeah,
and a lot of Louisville fans jumped off that team until they turned it around in March.
We went on that losing streak.
Right.
And
it was
Rick
a losing streak.
Chill out and I'll get it together. And we got it together.
And people was calling for his head then. That's what I'm saying. And that's a Hall of Fame coach. Man that's won a couple titles.
But back to the football point that I was making, it's just like, this'll be, like, next year will be his judgment year, in my opinion, because granted, this year we were dealt some injuries, and each team in the country's dealt injuries, so you got to make adjustments with that. So, like, no excuses there. But it's just the inconsistent. Yeah. I see, and that's another thing I feel like we not appreciating what he's brung here either. First Heisman winner we've ever had. Teddy was one of those guys who became close, but as the season progressed, numbers went to other teams because we wasn't able to make those big wins to take him up to that next level. So it's just like expectations should be always mid-level. After realizing this year, I've lowered my fandom as far as putting it out there and being like 10-2 and those days are down. I expect better next year, but also we'll be maybe losing the best college player in Louisville history. I think he passed last year. Last night he broke all Louisville passing records, rushing records, and all that. I think he went all time now last year.
Lamar's been great. So, transitioning into basketball, what are your all's thoughts about the basketball teams, both Kentucky and Louisville, thus far in the season? I know it's still early.
I can touch on Kentucky. They're young. It's like a high school team.
Yeah.
It's a high school team with 6 months on it. This is John Calipari's toughest job in my opinion. These guys are so young that you got to allow them to make mistakes and grow and just learn on the court. They don't even have an experienced sophomore coming back really on this team.
Gabriel.
He's not. He played, but the last, I think in January he sat the rest of the year. Just played sparingly. He started out, averaging minutes. I think he started a couple games or whatever. But no, William, no. He's like for instance, Deron Lamb, who was played a lot as a freshman, came back as a sophomore, as an experienced player. Terrence Jones, they don't have those players 8 freshmen. He's starting 5 freshmen. So I just see this team experiencing a lot of bumps this year. They're going to lose a lot of games. So Kentucky fans is going to have to be patient. John, he always gets his team ready come March. So it's just a process. He's got to get them up to speed, get them to take their little hits or whatever, and then see what you got in March. And that's I really don't see this team as a contender or anything like that. Sweet 16 is my expectation of the team. And every other year, I'm going to go on and say it now, but it's like every other year it comes that talented bunch of recruiting classes that Calipari normally brings on top of a class that's not as good as like how De'Aaron Fox and Malik and all that whole recruiting class was. This recruiting class is a little under that one, but when they bring in Zion and add this next this 18 class to some returning players on this, I think that team can do something special. But as far as this team, it's just a learning process with Kentucky.
From the outside view, I was listening to a couple scouting reports on the players heading into the season about UK. This is probably the first year I can name maybe 2 players versus the incoming years. I can name 4 or 5 players that were freshmen's coming or, like you said, returning players. Knox and Diallo look like they're probably the only two players that could play on the next level. And that was one of the scouting reports that I had looked into this team, was saying that it's probably the first year he doesn't have 3 to 5 pros on the team. And this would be one of his years. Everybody finds out how good of a coach he is being able to elevate a team that's not 5 or 6 people who are top picks in the draft or even second-round picks. So it'd be interesting to watch y'all this year.
As far as second-round picks, I disagree with that because there's some you have Jared Vanderbilt, who's he's sitting on the bench right now with an injury, who will probably be eligible to come back in around January. And Calipari was like, he changes the whole dynamics of this team as a 6'9" person that can run the point. So I believe Jared Vanderbilt is a player that can get drafted in the first round, and along with Knox and Diallo. But as far as proving to be a better coach or whatever like that, I mean, I don't think he has anything to prove. He's already proven it. 2010, he took a six-man team, basically Josh Harrelson as his center when everyone thought Ennis Cantor he was going to be the main 5, and he built that team around Brandon Knight, and as Brandon Knight freshman, Terrence Jones, Deron
2010
Lamb.
Was John Wall and them, wasn't it?
Not 2010.
You mean 12?
No, they 29.
2009, 2010 was John Wall and Cousins and them.
I thought Brandon Knight when them was 12.
He was on 10 and 11. Because y'all wanted to shift.
Because Brandon Knight came after John Wall. Then.
That was it, okay. So I thought it was 9 and 10, my bad. I got you.
Yeah, so Brandon Knight came after them. And he took that team to the Final Four, beat the Ohio State team that was ranked number 1 with Jared Sullivan. No one thought that team could get beat that year. He beat them as a 4 seed, then turned around, beat North Carolina in the Elite 8 to advance that team to the Final Four. So that's where he proved to me that he could coach. So I don't think this team right here, as far as me as a fan, it doesn't. I already know what the man's capable of. So, but it's Louisville. Y'all want to talk about them and what y'all think?
A lot of question marks on this team. I tell a lot of people this year that this might be the youngest team that we've had in a while, where we really have to play the freshmen a lot. I've been impressed with Darius Perry. I think that he's going to be that Louisville guard that we're used to having back there on defense and pressing the ball and then being able to get to the rim. And then you've got a nice shooter in Jordan. I don't know how to say his last name. I think it's Norwell. He's a good shooter from the outside. And then, of course, you got Q. He's a point guard. He's your starting point guard. He's a senior. And Dangadell, he'll have to step his game up. He'll have to keep being solid. I think he's been playing.
Ray's been playing well too. I think
Dang's been playing where he needs to play at. Just needs to keep that solid throughout the year, especially without Donovan being there anymore to kind of be that sidekick to him. But overall, I mean, we'll see. A lot of people were questioning, could Padgett coach? Could he lead this team? It's super early. It's 2 games in. I know they kind of
he shouldn't. He should be able to just roll the balls out. I mean, he has all this talent. I'm saying he has all this talent and experience back. He should just be able to roll the balls out. Anybody should be able to coach that team.
It ain't never been that situation. I don't think no coach can do it.
I'm saying that's what they say about Calipari all the time, is that anyone could coach John Wall now.
But I think
David Padgett be able to leave John Wall now to a Final Four?
I don't know.
But see, with that,
but I'm saying that's when you say anyone should be able to coach talent, then you just saying, oh, he's just a recruiter. Anyone can be able to coach this type of team. you should give that same thing to David Paget because he got talent and experience.
But besides Dangadell and maybe Ray Spalding, he might be able to raise up his draft status. But other than Dangadell, we don't have one draft prospect.
Well,
VJ was supposed to be one, but these first 2 games, he's lacking confidence. I don't know if it's more of him being. I don't say players aren't aggressive when it's. I think it's more of a shot making thing. If his shot's not falling, I don't think he's 100% dialed in all the time. As far as going out there and getting and making other ways to get your shot going, getting to the free throw line, or taking more mirroring shots versus your threes. But with him, I mean, not just with him, but I think this team, it's going to be hard to grasp because we did lose Rick. And with that being said, I think he's going to coach, Paget's going to coach from a big man perspective and run the team through our big man versus it being a guards team. Last year, we were able to press a lot because we had Donovan and Q. Granted, we wasn't the fastest or most athletic team, but I think this year we were way more athletic versus all around back last year. Last year we had Levitch coming in and Ray McMahon, which he'll still be coming in, but this year we got way more athleticism.
Especially if they go up.
And I think our length is going to play a big factor in a lot of our games. I'm starting to see Ray take that next step, not just from last game, but I think him being more aggressive in the passing lanes and being a defender and rebounder, I think he could make a next jump to trying to get in that range of being drafted. But Dangadell showed a lot to me the first game against George Mason. He played almost every minute that game. I remember I was at the game, and he played at least 4 different positions that game too. So I think with him being the junior experienced player, I think he's going to have those games where he has his offensive slumps, but I think Louisville fans need to be in his corner the most because I feel like he has the biggest weight on his shoulder with this team. This team is lacking a lot of oomph in it. I don't want to say offensive power because we do have nice players to score, but we don't have that defender besides Darius Purvis and Dangadell who's going to lock down people.
Okay.
I think Honest will have his ups and downs, but I think the pressure of having Malik Williams behind him is going to help him because he's always going to have looking over his shoulder to see that the freshman's behind him. And last game showed a lot to me with the 8 blocks because that's probably the first time I've ever seen Honest aggressive and looking to go chase for blocks. Normally, it's somebody coming at him. This time, it's somebody getting beat off the dribble. He was there to step up. And that's probably one of the first games I've seen him do it. Only thing I could say about him he needs to work on which is probably his biggest weakness, his strength, but also just catching the ball. Yep. A lot of that is he brings it either down to his body or to where guards can reach it, or it just doesn't look comfortable with the ball. But I think
he's a senior now.
Yeah, and that's
a senior.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's
4-year players.
That's not. I mean, listen, he's one of those that slid through the cracks, man. I love Honest, man. I love him, but yeah, man, he's had his ups and downs this year. But granted, I think
I like Honest
there's something to work on.
I like him as a player. You know, he just I don't know. Just the physicality or whatever.
Actually, he's I just checked it over, and it looks like he's a junior.
No, Honest?
Yeah.
He should be a senior.
No, he's hold on, it's 16, 17. My
yeah,
bad.
I was going to say.
18, 18.
Yeah, be a senior.
He's a 7. He's a senior.
Yeah. I like what I'm seeing from Ray, too. Spalding. I think he's playing more of his position. You know, when you're in Kentucky in high school and stuff, man, you're the tallest player on the team, they automatically stick you at the center spot. Yeah. You can be 6'5" and whatever, and in Kentucky they'll throw you down at the center spot. When there's other states, you 6'5", you're a guard. You might be a shooting guard or a point guard or something like that. So I think with Ray, I just don't think he's never been a back to the basket type of guy because of his height. He's facing more. He likes to shoot. He likes to shoot and face and run and I think that's going to elevate him to the next level if he continue to do well this season.
I also want to throw in there, we also have to be patient with Q. Yes, he's a senior, but I think he's got to find his role on this team too, with a new head coach at Chapman who's probably taking other routes to get him shots versus how, in last year's offense, he could get in transition and be able to attack the floor, which he has his moments too this year. But I think with the motion offense last year, guards are able to catch and shoot more in that offense. This year, I've seen a lot of more pick and roll options versus dribble drive kicks that I'm used to seeing with Rick. And I think we're just going to have to give his team some time to gel and glue together. Also, they have to learn this new system. I doubt he changes a lot of things that Rick were running and stuff, but he also has to integrate his own offense and own defense and his personality into this team. And as Louisville fans, we just got to sit in there and root for him. Don't want to jump out there high.
A lot of empty seats, Louisville fans.
But that's everywhere. That's everywhere. We're not going to do it. Ruff Arena ain't selling out. None of these places. I think, and that, I think I'm saying,
but the lower bowl, I'm talking about the lower level.
Yeah, I agree. That's granted.
The lower level, there's a lot of empty seats in the lower level where you can see it on TV. I'm not talking about
those tickets are actually lowered prices too. So
I'm catching them. That's what I said. I'm catching them. Hey, I caught one. I caught a lower level seat last week for $23.
But Louisville, the next couple of games, they should be able to go ahead and handle those opponents because they're playing Southern Illinois and then St. Francis, Philadelphia. Looks
next big game for Purdue.
But the next big game for them is next week against Purdue, and then they play Seton Hall.
A lot of people are talking about Purdue being a Final Four team, a sleeper. So it'd be a nice chance to see us against some nice competition. Even though I don't want to downplay the teams we have played because those were nice games too.
Especially at George Mason, because that's a team that usually is in the tournament every year. That's what I was telling everybody.
I don't know about that.
They're usually on the cusp.
I haven't seen George Mason in the tournament since UConn.
They made it a couple times.
But I mean, that was the big moment for them.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they've had a deep run.
I remember the UConn George Mason. I don't know about that one, but
so let's.
This would be also, just to go back on Kentucky. This would be a good year to see against all around SEC talent. I think SEC this conference year has been better, and it will be better than it has in recent years.
Absolutely.
That's also a point of me saying to prove him as a coach. It wasn't just to say what he hasn't done. It's just like a lot of his competition in the SEC hasn't been good from every program all around. So a lot of those are cupcake games heading into the seasons, and that's probably the first year I've looked at the season and been like, Vanderbilt, not Purdue.
I don't know. I can't say it, though. I really can't say
Florida,
it.
Auburn.
I can't really say that because like the Brandon Knight year. The Brandon Knight year, they lost almost every road game.
But that wasn't a good SEC year.
Huh?
That wasn't a good SEC year.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I mean by I'm talking about the conference as a whole. This would be the year where he's getting tested every year on the road. Now, granted, y'all can get beat by some bad team.
Any team on the road is a hard game
because
no matter what
for
team
that particular team
on the road, that's a hard game.
That's their biggest game of the season.
Besides last year, South Carolina hadn't been competent in basketball. Besides. What, 2 years? What year ago?
South Carolina beat John Wall now.
Yeah, Devin Downey.
My point of saying, what did that team do that year?
But my point is, any team on the road is a tough game.
Okay, and
they can go they can go 10 and
I can put that,
but it's a tough game on the road because you got to think with Kentucky, every stadium's gonna sell.
And I put that more on the players versus Calipari. So that's what I mean by these past few years, he should have been able to beat those teams going on the road. Now, like you said, it is a tougher place and tougher environment. That goes on to the players and how they deal with it on the court. But heading into it, I haven't seen over the last 8 years y'all going in doubted to lose a game. And that's
Florida. The Florida year he was.
What year? The year was
Bradley Beal.
Yeah, Bradley Beal. I think.
No, what year was Will? What's his name?
Scotty Wimmican.
Yeah, what year was that? That was the only year.
12. That was with Bradley Beal. That was the 2012 year.
That'd be the only year.
Every single time they played.
But that was my point of being I haven't seen a game to where I've looked at it and been it's going to be them going in doubted to lose or favored to lose. That's what I mean by it hasn't been inferior competition. Like I said, I'm not saying it's not hard to win or lose on the road. I just mean by betting standards and by everybody's standards. Now, granted, y'all do get the most high praise and outrageous predictions, but at the same time, heading in the SEC conference, y'all only ever predicted to lose maybe one game or two games. Now this year, like I was saying, this year be the first year I'll be the SEC is a little deeper this year, so it's more competition. So now I get to see him and the team deal with it because he's not out there winning the games or losing the games. It's a hit or miss game. Right. So shots can be made, but
I just think with this team, it's with this team this is the wrong year to try to look for that because I think this team will take a lot of losses, regardless of if it was a talented SEC conference versus one that has experienced teams that is not so talented or whatever. So I just think this team going into the SEC period is going to take a lot of lumps, especially on the road.
Welcome to the Analyze Sports Talk, a sports podcast of real conversations of the latest sports topics from baseball to basketball, from football to hockey and everything in between, like trade gossip, waiver wire, locker room talk, and more. Now, here is Analyze Sports.